Hi everyone, this is Kellyanne again with Church Windows. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Today we're looking at using funds and sub-accounts, or I'm sorry, sub-funds and sub-accounts. Before we start though, on your GoToWebinar toolbar, if it's your first time using it, there's a little red orangish arrow along the side. If you click on that, it will shrink or minimize down the GoToWebinar toolbar so it's not blocking what I'm showing you on screen. To open it back up, you just click that little arrow again. I won't be unmuting people to ask questions, but there is a question panel, and you can type any questions you have in that question panel. While I'm showing you the material, Ross is also in the room, and he'll be answering any questions. And then at the end of the webinar, I'll open the floor and read them out loud and just answer them for everyone. Try to keep those topical, though. We are talking about sub-funds and sub-accounts. If you have a question specific to your data or pertaining to another topic, we'd be happy to answer that on a support call, or you can email us. Questions pertaining to your data sometimes are just too cumbersome to help you with during a webinar, and they're best handled with a call or an email. One more thing before we begin. The material I'm looking at today, I'm taking straight from one of our accounting workbooks. If you're interested in the material, or if you have the books and you want to follow along, I'm not keeping my head in the book, I'm just using it as a framework. But we're using Accounting 102. That can be found under Beginning on our website, Training Workbooks. Now there's a lot of free videos and documentation on our website to help you with things and the help files, but we also do sell workbooks which help you with the program, and it comes all packaged in a nice book, or you can print it out. It's a little cheaper if you download and print it yourself. Here's all our topics. If we go down to accounting, whoops, one more. I am reading, or not reading, I am using material from Accounting 102. If you have the book, it's page 27 through, I believe, 34, 35. Very end of the book, sub-funds and sub-accounts. So that is available on the website. Let me see. Somebody said they can't hear anything. Did I not unmute myself all the way? There we go. Let's see. Let's try that again. Okay, can everybody hear me now? I apologize. Let me try that again. I thought I unmuted myself. Okay, going back to the beginning here, I was mentioning on the GoToWebinar toolbar, there's a little orange arrow on the side you can use to open and close it, get it out of the way, or bring it back up if you need it. Also, Ross is going to answer questions. You can ask any questions in the GoToWebinar toolbar on the question panel. And I'm doing this real quick now because I already did it all and I was muted. What I was showing though when I realized I was muted is on our website, I was showing where the information I'm gathering that from. It's coming from our Accounting 102 book, all the way here at the bottom. And I am using the material from the very end of Accounting 102 that covers sub-funds and sub-accounts. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. All right. So let's go ahead and dive into that material. I'm going to close this. Here I thought I had everything going right for once. I usually forget something. All right. So, whoops. I already have accounting open just to save time. I opened it just by clicking on accounting and it pops up. I'm going to maximize it. I like it maximized. Sub-funds and sub-accounts. With any type of account, any asset, liability, fund, income or expense account, you can create a account underneath it called a sub. If it's under a sub or under a fund, we call it a sub fund. If it's under any of the other types of accounts, we call those sub accounts. Sub accounts function the same as sub funds. Sub funds are just a little different because a sub fund would have the income and expense accounts linked to the actual sub fund and not the parent fund above it giving all the totals. And when you create an account with sub accounts, that main account over top of all those subs, you don't post any activity or transactions to that main or what we call parent account or parent fund. The sub accounts or sub funds underneath that, Those are the ones that have the activity and transactions, or in the case of a sub-fund, the sub-fund has the income and expense accounts linked to it. I'm going to show you, we're going to make a building renovation fund, and we want to subdivide it and have a church repair and renovation fund and parsonage repair and renovation fund under it that will total up to that main fund, the parent fund, which we're going to call building renovation fund. Now I see a question coming in. Somebody mentioned you can't add sub-funds if there have been transactions added already. Is this true for the next year also? They want to rework their chart of accounts. Do we have to wait until we set up for 2018? That is true. If an account already has activity or a balance, you can't create subs under it because the subs are what get the activity, and that parent just gives you a balance. Now, if your sub or your fund or whatever that account is you want to make subs under, if it rolls over to a new year with a zero balance, then you can create sub accounts under it. Sandra, yours is a little different. If you want, you could create a new fund, relink or make your sub accounts and relink your existing income and expenses to those subs, but that's a little more complex, and it'd be better if you call if you think you want to do that rather than waiting until it has a zero balance in 2018. Definitely give us a call and we could talk about how you could make a new one now and relink things so you have it right now instead of 18, or you can wait until 18. Either way. I'm going to lunch at 2 though, so if you want to talk to me, you'd have to wait until after 3. I take a late lunch. All right, let me go ahead and show you. We're just going to get back to, that's a little more complex what Sandra was asking. Let's get back to just, let's make a fund with a sub-fund. None of these are brand new. They don't have balances, activity, nothing. We're making them brand new. So we're going to go to Manage Accounts and Accounts Plus Minus. And we want to make a fund, so we're going to click on Fund. And the first thing I have to do is make my main or parent fund. So right here where it says Setting Up Main Funds, I'm going to click in there, excuse me, and make a Building Renovation Fund. I already know the name and the number I want, so I'm going to click through the balance, and it just puts that name in for me with the word balance after it. And then I'm going to type in my account number. If I want it to be in a subtotal, I can pick that right now. We don't have any fund subtotals, so I'm not going to mess with that. I'm just going to click Add Account. Now they put in my main parent account name and account number. Once I add it, I can see it over on the tree view. It doesn't have a plus by it because it has no income or expenses or sub accounts or anything linked to it yet. That's why it looks different from the other funds. If we look down lower left, we see all of our existing funds. And here's the new one I just made, my Building Renovation Fund. If we look at the last column, sub-funds, it will either tell you NA or it will have a little box with 3 dots with a number. This is a brand new fund, so it will let me create sub-funds. You can click the NA. If a fund has NA there and you wanted to make subs, you can click and see why. Also here we see this memorial fund balance. It tells us here there are already 6 sub-funds under my memorial fund. Well, we want to make sub-funds for the building renovation fund. So we're going to click this little box with 3 dots in the last column. And really quickly my screen changes. It's the same screen. Looks almost like I've got the same thing, but if you look at the wording, tells me here I'm setting up sub-funds for building renovation fund. Sub-fund name. So really important to pay attention to the words on screens and such. Oops, and I'm on page 29 if you're following along in the book. I'm going to now make my church repair and renovation fund. So right where it says sub-fund name, I'll go ahead and type in church repair and renovation fund, tab down to number, and we're going to make it 25205. And we'll hit Add Account. And now we see our first sub-fund. And then we're just going to go right back up to sub-fund name and make our next sub-fund, Parsonage, Repair, and Renovation Fund. And that will be 25210. Hit Add Account. So there I have a fund with 2 sub-funds. If you look over to the right side at my tree view, we now see, we could click the plus or the minus, shows it open, our building renovation fund, now with 2 sub-funds underneath it. Now, once we create a fund and sub-funds, those are treated as a unit. So a lot of people sometimes prefer to do subtotals, which are just groups that you put in a certain named subtotal or category, and you get a total based on that. Like if you want to create custom account groups for reports, and if I wanted church repair on one custom group and parsonage repair on another, I couldn't do that. A fund or an account with sub-funds is treated as a unit or a group, and for reporting they would have to all go onto a custom account group together. Now if I decide I wanted to make a sub-fund or sub-account a standalone account, I can easily do that. But let's look at now how we can add income and expense accounts to this. We could do it right here. You may have text tell you to go to one place to add an account versus another text telling you another place. That's because there's more than one way to do things oftentimes in this program. I want to show you how right here in this tree view, or if I went to manage accounts and view and clicked on the tree view, I can right click on an account. And here I could add my income or expense accounts right from the tree view. But let me go ahead and do what the book is showing. I'm going to stick with the book. I could also go up to Manage Accounts, Accounts Plus Minus, and then click on Income to make my income account. When I go this route, then the first thing I have to do is choose the fund that this income account will be linked to. So I'm going to choose my building renovation fund, and it sees automatically that's a fund with sub-funds, and it's not going to let me link an income or expense to the main parent fund. So it automatically is showing me those sub-funds. Now I have to pick which sub-fund I want to make an income account for, which I'll do my church repair and renovation, and we're going to make church repair and renovation income, because we can't have 2 accounts with the same exact name, but I can add the word income to that and it will let me create that. So I'll hit tab, and this will be 25205, and we could add it to a subtotal if we wanted. I'm just going to click add account, and there is our income account for the building renovation sub account church repair and renovation fund. Now if I want to make an expense, I can close this and click expense. And now first thing I need to do is choose my current fund, the building renovation fund. And then I need to choose my church repair and renovation sub fund. And I'm going to make church repair and renovation expense. Whoops. And that will be, whoops, I lost my account number. Where'd it go? I need new glasses. 25205. And we'll hit add account. So now if we go over to the tree view, whoops, and go to my funds. Oh, they're all open. Let's see. And find my building. There we go. Here's my building renovation fund. It has our new sub fund. There's one underneath. There's one of my income accounts, one of my expense accounts. I would want to go on and do the same thing and make my income and expense accounts for my parsonage repair. But let's go ahead and look at adding sub accounts for income and expense accounts, because I'm not going to repeat the same thing there. Those are done the same way. I'm on page 32 if you are following along in the book. Expense accounts and income accounts can have sub-accounts. Now with sub-accounts, I don't think I mentioned, they can only have one level. You can't have a sub of a sub. So we're going to add sub-accounts for, turn the page here, for our property insurance expense account. We want to have a little more detail with that. So we're going to do it a different way. We're going to go to Manage Accounts and View. Now we could go to the accounts plus minus and click expense and do sub-accounts that way, but I'm going to follow along with the book. In our tree view, we want to find the property insurance. Oops. need to add, let me add my property insurance or property maintenance. Is that what we wanted? Nope, can't do that one because it already has expense or activity. So let me add, I'm going to add real quick, property insurance. I'm going to make up a number there and say okay. All right, so now we have the account. We're going to make a sub-account for property insurance. So I'm going to right-click over here in the tree view on property insurance, and I'm going to choose add an expense subledger or a sub-account. So I choose that, and I want to make, oops, I lost my spot in the book. We want to add church insurance. Oops. My fingers can't spell today. And we'll say okay. Oops. Now I'm just choosing random numbers here. So now we see our property insurance expense in the tree view now has a sub-expense. If I want to add another, I can highlight property insurance and choose add an expense subledger. And we're going to make parsonage, whoops, insurance. Say okay. Whoops. I thought I hit 2. There we go. And now we see our property insurance has 2 sub-expense accounts. So these 2 accounts are what will have activity or transactions posted to them, while this property insurance is just going to give us a total of the different accounts underneath it. All right. And if we want to, we can take a look at how these look on the balance sheet. If we go to Reports Export and then a balance sheet over here, just see how the funds look. Let's make sure I check accounts with 0 balance. Got all my details showing, so we'll hit print. And if we look down in our fund balances, right at the very bottom of the first page, we see in italics, parent accounts with sub-accounts will show in italics. We see building renovation fund balance. And then below that, or on the next page, we see our 2 sub-accounts indented in a little. And we also see that total over here, kind of mid-page, done in italics. You can tell your sub-funds and sub-accounts apart from actual subtotals because sub-accounts and sub-funds, the total for those will show in italics and the parent shows in italics. Whereas if we look at page 2 or page 1 where it says long-term liabilities, total current liabilities in bold, those are subtotals. So those are a little different. All right, and I finished with a few minutes to spare. So questions about sub-accounts, sub-funds, subtotals. Let me see if somebody asked about funds being rolled, where their balances roll into the new year with funds and sub-funds. Yes, I think that's important, so I wanted to answer that out loud, even though Ross did already answer that. That's one nice thing about having funds with sub-funds. The best use I can think of for it is if you look right here on page 2, memorial fund. A lot of churches will just set up one memorial fund for all the different memorials they have. And then when the fund rolls over the next year, it has a balance, but your income and expense accounts start the year at 0. So you'd have to look at the prior year's income or expenses to see how much money you had for each memorial. I'm answering Beverly's question right now. I just noticed somebody just asked that as I'm answering it. Having different sub-funds for your different memorials means that when I roll over into a new year, excuse me, these sub-funds are going to carry a balance over. Excuse me, let me mute myself for a moment and cough and get a sip of coffee. Okay. Somebody asks, what's the benefit to doing this versus 2 new accounts? Well, it totals up to 1 main account for you. So, like in the case of memorial, you might want to know your total amount for memorials, but then you may need to pull out just one person's specific memorial amount. With those sub-funds, I can easily see what my total memorial amount is versus for John Joseph or Timothy Angelino. I can see how much money I have for each of those specific memorials. So yes, you can use subaccounts for memorial funds under each individual's name. That's exactly what we were doing right there on page 2 of our balance sheet. Somebody said, how do you use sub-funds with the pass-through account? You'd use them the same way. You could create a main pass-through and have sub-accounts under that pass-through for, exact all your different pass-through things you're trying to keep separate. And then when you need to pay those out, you just go right to pay bills and choose that sub-liability and pay right out of that. So pass-through accounts, if you want a sub-fund for your pass-throughs, then, it'd be the same way. You'd create a fund with your sub-funds. Someone said their question is in regards to sub-ledgers, not sub-funds. Because what's the benefit of doing one account or doing subs versus 2 new accounts? Because you want to see a grand total. You want those accounts to total up to another account. Versus if you want to be able to report separately on an account, then I would create that account as a standalone and then maybe create subtotals rather than subaccounts. Somebody said, I wanted to create a sub-fund at the beginning of next year. Do I have to create a new chart of accounts since balances will roll over? Is there a way to avoid this? Yes, you can make sure by 12/31 that you have posted transactions or adjustments to clear that fund so it ends the year with a 0 balance. Then when you roll over to your new year, that fund would have a 0 balance. You could temporarily relink your income and expenses to another fund while you make your sub-accounts under that fund. Then once you've made your subs, you can link those income and expense accounts to your sub-funds. So yes, you can do that. It's probably a little more complex, and it might be easier to help you with that on a phone call. Someone said, please clarify, are income and expense accounts linked to sub-funds, sub-accounts, or when are they linked only to ED? Well, if you have sub-funds, then income and expense accounts are linked to the sub-fund. A parent account with subs under it that parent fund never has income or expenses linked to it. They are linked to the sub-funds. If you have a standalone account without subs under it, a standalone fund without any sub-funds, then income and expenses would be linked to that fund. It's only when you have sub-funds that the income and expenses are linked to the subs. Regular accounts that are, non-fund accounts, those, income and expenses are linked to funds, but you don't link assets or liabilities to anything. Somebody said, can you use sub-accounts with accounts receivable, example, building tenants? I'm pretty sure, you can create sub-accounts for any type accounts. I'm pretty sure your accounts receivable already is, accounts receivable clients already is. If you look up in the number 1 assets on the report I'm showing, you can see that's in italics, meaning that is a parent account and the clients go under that as sub-accounts. Same for your accounts payable. The program automatically comes with accounts payable as a parent account, and you create vendors underneath that main account. And someone who would ask about pass-throughs as as a sub-account right here on our balance sheet. Didn't even realize. We have it set up to show you pass-through accounts set up as liabilities with a parent account and then sub-accounts for the different reasons we're tracking that pass-through money. All right. Are there more questions? If you need to leave, you can just use the X on your GoToWebinar toolbar to close out of the classroom. But I'll definitely stick around and answer more questions if anybody has more questions. Or if I don't think I missed any. If I missed any, then I apologize. Please copy and paste it through there again. I think I got everyone's. And if you're in the middle of typing a question, then go ahead and enter and then type the rest of it, and that way I won't close the room without answering your question. Someone said, if there is a year-end balance and pass-through, will it carry forward? Yes. The only accounts that don't carry a balance forward are your number 4 income accounts and excuse me, and your number 5 expense accounts. All other accounts carry balances forward. So I don't know if your pass-throughs are liabilities, then yes, it will carry forward. If you set your pass-throughs up as income, number 4 accounts, then no, those will not carry forward. So I guess that depends on how you set your pass-throughs up, because not everybody sets up pass-throughs as liabilities. It's just, I think it's better because they don't show up as income on your treasurer's report when you have them as liabilities. All right, more questions. All right, well, I'm not seeing more questions coming through. Again, if you have questions, or if you had a question that was more specific to your data and you need more clarification, definitely give us a call or email us. I take a late lunch, so once I'm done and cleaned up here in the front office, I am going to take my lunch. So you most certainly can request me to call you back, but I will not be back on the phone until 3:30 Eastern. So if you need an answer and you need it quick, then just let them know what you need help with, and somebody on the phones right now can call you back to help you out sooner than probably I would. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this webinar for the day. Thanks so much for attending. I hope everybody learned a lot, and see you soon, or talk to you on the phone. Bye.